One sip of fruit punch shakes the August bones and
Methodist
Queen works only occasionally.
Welcome to the Cretchen Hotel. 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 Welcome to the Cretchen Hotel.
Your most terrifying nightmare could never prepare you for what happens to the guest. You may never again spend a night away from home. One after another they come. One after another they check in. And pray for the day they can check out. If you have the nerve, come for a night and stay for a nightmare. No one will be admitted after the guests check in.
Following international future success of this documentary, the world and Hollywood has taken notice. With the demand for diverse voices in horror, science fiction, and metaphysical storytelling at all-time high, the Colors in Darkness group of authors and writers answered that call. The rest, they say, is future.
We're online 24/7. You're listening to the hottest internet station.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another fiery edition of Guitarist Cafe, only on the True Radio Network. My topic this evening will be the featured authors and director of the Black Minds in Horror documentary. With Jordan Peele's box office hit, Get Out, this finally opens the door for the black horror writers to get their names out and their works recognized. This outpouring of talent is going to change the game in the world of horror. Get Out has shined a spotlight on the black narratives in horror, and soon there could be a movement of interest to look for new horror stories from people of color, and how the Colors in Darkness group of writers, authors, have stories that production companies, producers, directors, and Hollywood could get their next blockbuster movie hit from. Get Out has also brought Afrofuturism front and center to the creative art world as well. Basically, black writers, authors, artists, musicians, and students will finally get their just due for their creativity. One can hope anyways.
Growing up in almost any community housing people of color is the majority, there's 4 pillars in your neighborhood you get used to seeing: corner stores, liquor stores, churches, and barbershops. But focusing on the latter, around my way, the most popular barbershop was called, simply enough, Haircuts. It's been there for over 80 years, passed from father to son, boasting 3, 4, sometimes even 5 generations of customers. The owner, Mr. Monroe, comes from a long line of barbers. Under his father, he started cutting hair when he was 16 years old in 1942. He took over the business when his father died. Many young people got their first jobs at his shop, and he never refused service to anyone, even if they couldn't pay. Sadly, this year, Mr. Monroe was killed during a robbery gone bad. He was only days away from his 91st birthday. Mr. Monroe didn't have a living male heir to pass his barbershop to, so it was bought by a new owner, Augustus Perry. His smile seemed more devious than friendly, and he didn't allow people to hang out in his shop anymore. There was something about him that made you uneasy, and with good reason. Mr. Perry had a secret, a dark, twisted, and evil secret. It starts with the fact that Mr. Monroe only had daughters and granddaughters. No one knew that one of his granddaughters had a son she had abandoned at the hospital many years ago. The child was taken in by a middle-class white couple, the Perrys. Virginia, a nurse that worked at the hospital, and her bigoted doctor husband, Dr. Perry. He programmed the young man with his personal belief systems, with rhetoric such as how there are a few bad seeds in the black community that are like cancer, and they contaminate everyone and everything around them. But if those bad seeds were exterminated, black people would thrive and race relations would be better. Augustus grew up believing that. In duality, Virginia would constantly affirm to the young man how he should be proud of and love his black skin and all that looks like him, and the contributions to society that black people have made as his legacy. Augustus grew up believing that too. He wanted to follow in the footsteps of Dr. Perry and was sent to medical school. He was viewed as an extremely gifted and intelligent student doctor, but he engaged in some unethical and bizarre experiments on certain black patients and cadavers, trying to find a cure for what he called the black curse, and he was barred from legally practicing medicine again. For years, he exterminated with no specific method to continue his experiments. A chance meeting with a genealogist led him to discover his biological mother and his family's lineage of barbers. But before he could meet his great-grandfather, he found out he was murdered. This feud has ambitious and confirmed his beliefs about the cancers in the black community. He was still attending barber school when he reopened the shop. He never threw away the hair clippings he cut, because he believed that by examining a person's hair follicles, he could determine if they were of good character, honorable, and worthy to be considered among the ancestry of great black people of this country. If they were, he used his normal blue aftershave, safe, pleasing to the smell. However, if his examination of their hair follicles showed them to be of poor character, distrustful, and violent, he used a red aftershave, a special concoction he created that slowly seeps into their pores all day and at night induces them into sleep paralysis. While in that state, he kidnaps them from their homes and takes them to the basement of the shop that used to be a holding cell 100 years ago. He calls it the barber's room. There they are dissected, examined, experimented on, and most importantly, never seen around the neighborhood again.
Now, this isn't a new blockbuster horror film that's coming out, at least not yet. This is actually an idea that I had for a book many years ago, before Google and Facebook and before there was plentiful information like it is now on how to even write a book, which leads me to finding my group, Colors in Darkness. And since horror is one of my first loves, I felt very fortunate to find a group of authors who wrote horror and paranormal and supernatural stories and sci-fi, and readers and other creative people under that umbrella. So much so that I was inspired to put together this documentary to introduce the world to this phenomenal group and these phenomenal, extraordinary creative writers and creators.
I hope you enjoy.
Colors in skies are horizons and sunsets, rainbows and spectrums, some haven't even become yet. Colors in nature are flowers and landscapes, greenery of the fields and forests planted for man's sake. Colors in harvest are vegetables, herbs, and fruits, for nourishment, healing, and reconnecting to our roots. Colors in people are vibrant and diverse, with high-frequency connections, aligned to the universe. The colors in darkness are tried with warriors' cries, with stories that terrifies and come alive when you close your eyes.
Human sight is possible because we have two types of cells in our retina, the rods and the cones. The cones are sensitive to color, and the rods are sensitive to the intensity of the light. The problem is the cones are not as sensitive as the rods. So as we move into darkness, we lose first the colors. So to see colors in darkness would be a miracle.
I'm real excited about the idea of colors in darkness, the idea of a community of horror writers, horror artists coming together as a community.
So which is a really good concept behind the whole colors and darkness, is it allows us to contradict together, and once we find each other, it gives us opportunities to cross-promote, collaborate, and let everyone know that we're here.
Colors and darkness are tried with warriors' cries, with stories that terrifies and come alive.
Colors and Darkness is a concept. One of the few Facebook groups I enjoy being in is Colors and Darkness. The feedback is immense, and the conversations are fun and enlightening. Conceptually enlightening. It's about time for a positive spin on the word dark.
Colors in Darkness has started out small, and I'm watching us gain momentum now. But as we just come together to bring recognition to Black African American authors.
Women of color, Black women specifically, were well equipped and even arguably at an advantage to tell these stories about horror. We know horror all too well in the face of very real monsters.
The dark is where things are hidden. If you go into a dark room, you cannot see anything. But when you turn the light on, that which was hidden now comes into the forefront, and you can see everything visible.
Colors in Darkness was created by myself and 3 other very talented women. I can't say enough about them. They are Kenya Moss Dime, Eden Royce, and the fabulous Dahlia D. Winters.
There are colors of writings written in forest and darkness, from pencil to pen, from pen to keystrokes, from typewriters to PCs. When reading Lucia, her job is done well cause her job is to scare us, from the paranormal romantic mind of Maya Lyris, one of the 4 founding mothers of the CIG, lover of all forms of monsters and monstrosities.
My name is Maya Lyris, and I write paranormal, supernatural, romance, and erotica. Occasionally I will delve into horror. I have a few free horror short stories up on my website. And lately, I've been, dipping my toe into the open call market and submitting stories to small publications and small press. I haven't really written a full-length horror novel, but there is the future. I've been writing for over 10, 12 years professionally, but I've also done self-publishing, but always, even when I was publishing, my main genres, which are paranormal romance, horror was always something that I read. I have more, on my Goodreads account, you'll pretty much see only horror. The horror bug bit me when I was a young kid, back in the day. We only had a few channels, so it was either John Wayne or Godzilla, and I'd pretty much seen every John Wayne movie there was, so we moved to Godzilla. I started reading, fantasy very early on, and anything that had a monster captured my attention.
If it bleeds, let it be, or see the crossbones in Skullface, as Daryl Dawson Brown takes you screaming through crawl space.
My name is Daryl Dawson. I have written 2 books. First one is a short story collection called Crawl Space, and that was originally published back in 2009. And the second book that I've written is If It Bleeds, which is a novella kind of about the industry that I'm in. I'm a video editor for a local TV station. And it's about how television can manipulate people's emotions and make them much more angry and competitive than they really need to be. And I kind of put that in a horror setting. Basically, the television station is sending subliminal messages that's turning people into these cannibalistic, zombie-like creatures. And the hero of the story is trying to not only stop the influence of the television station, but also is trying to save himself and his family from that influence. And I published that book in 2013, and it's doing pretty well. And I'm currently working on a third book, another short story collection called Death's Dreams, and also on the side another novella, and that's going to be centered on the idea of love and marriage and what it means. And I don't have an official title for that yet, but hopefully soon.
There pretty much is some kind of monster in all of my books, whether it be a good monster or a bad monster. I like to write about monsters, and I do.
Horror reviews with a sci-fi persona. You're a goner if you're trapped in a story by Crystal Connor.
Hi guys, my name is Crystal Connor, and I write horror, science fiction, and dark fantasy. And I'm also the founder of CrystalCon, which is a symposium of science and fiction. And what happens at this epic convention is I bring science fiction writers and fantasy writers together with STEM professionals to talk about the same topic, but from opposite ends of our own discipline. Oftentimes, science fiction writers, we research science, and we're in awe of science, and we follow scientists around like they're rock stars because we're fans of them. And scientists in real life, they read science fiction. I mean, there's just no denying that. But there hasn't been a place where the science fiction writer and the scientist in real life can come together and kind of geek out on each other and be fans of one another, which oftentimes we are. That's CrystalCon, but what we're here today is to talk about is horror. So not only do I write horror, I have the amazing opportunity to review indie horror for horrorics.net. And it's super exciting and fun to be at the beginning of some of these filmmakers' career, because they're submitting these films that they put their blood, sweat, and tears in, and we get to review that. We get to be the first ones to see it and the first ones to give it love and spread it out to the community. So that's pretty awesome. Oh, and this year, I'm also one of the judges for Seattle Comic-Con's Film Festival, so I'm incredibly excited about that. However, I have to say that judging films and reviewing films are two completely different beasts. Judging films is difficult, and if I keep getting the quality of films that I've been seeing so far, judging is going to be super hard, because let me tell you, these guys are bringing their A game. So if you have a chance to be in Seattle May 1 through 5, hope you guys can swing by and check out that festival and see who the winners are. I'm super excited to see who the winning film is going to be as well.
Horror is like, a big challenge. So I'm always reading, going to the extremes. Is that scary? Why do I think that's scary? Why is that frightening me?
When you oppose a creed's needs, escape becomes feeble. When a globe's disease bleeds deeds by Lance Oliver Keeble.
Hello, my name is Lance Oliver Keeble. I'm author of Globe's Disease. Globe's Disease is a book that's set in a small town. It's a novel set in a small town where an eclectic group of people suffer from lycanthropy. They have to deal with a government agency who shows up with promises of cure, a vengeful vampire who's trying to exterminate them because he hates werewolves, and hunters who treat them like wild game. Essentially, it's a werewolf story told from the werewolf's perspective, but it's a diverse perspective. And for those of you who are wondering, yes, the black guy lives.
I would be the first person to die in a actual horror movie, because the monster comes out of the closet, the monster comes out of the woods, and I'm sitting there trying to figure out, exactly how many teeth do you have?
DK Mason is taking you to the belly of the mountain. The horror starts mounting when your fears are surmounting.
Hi, I'm DK Mason, author of In the Belly of the Mountain, which was my first published book. The book is based on my hometown of Harlan, Kentucky, where I grew up listening to whispers of a creature roaming in the fields. However, it's fictional in my book, but after the publication of In the Belly of the Mountain, I started hearing all kind of horror stories, and it was crazy. My readers send me all of these stories like Headless Anna. My family eventually migrated to Georgia, which is my adopted state, and I'm getting ready to release 3 a.m., which is a series of short stories based on a small southern town, community surrounding that. Howland Lake will be included, which was in the novel Winter's Chill. I reside in Georgia with my kids that I call my crew, and I go to the Georgia coast when I need to be refueled.
When it comes to horror, one of the things I like about it is that it forces you to challenge your fears.
To me, fear is interesting. There's so many different levels to fear. Okay, you're scared, you're in a room with these people. Everybody's going to react different. Some is going to run, some is going to freeze, and others are going to be ready to fight.
My simple definition of horror is anything that scares you, terrorizes you, can hurt you, kill you, or change your life forever. Any vile act that can be committed by or against you, acts that step outside the bounds of all reason or logic, or stepping away from all humanity, committing acts that defy conventional love.
I think that the horror genre, it does a great job of helping us, explore the full spectrum of human psychology.
Hear me. My children, the time of our great slumber has ended. Rise up against them. Treat them as your playthings. From this day forth, they become the toys. Rejoice.
If I was to try and describe my work with one word, it's going to be difficult because I'm super chatty and I'm an extremely descriptive writer. But if I was to choose just one word, I would choose brutal. And the reason I would choose that word is because as a horror author, quite honestly, I give zero fucks about you getting a good night's sleep.
Inside the Black community, as far as horror is concerned, a lot of people within the community kind of see the whole genre, the image of horror as something evil, something that Christian people shouldn't touch, and that's something we need to get over. And it's faith and horror. They're not mutually exclusive, and I think once we understand that horror is merely entertainment, it's not a commitment of the soul, except maybe to create. But once we understand that, I think a lot more people of color will get into it.
Horror basically is those monsters that are inside of us and outside of us. Horror is the unknown and the known. Horrors are your dreams exploiting your weaknesses. Horror is the dark side of fantasy.
First, if it's a haunting and, there's, something moving in the house, or there's something, the lights flickering on and on, I'm probably going to ask why this ghost ain't paying rent.
I'm Shia Stash, author and writer on a mission, bringing awareness to women of color in horror and science fiction.
Hi, I'm Shia S. Dash, and I'm a writer. I currently am a contributor for Blavity.com, and I'm a staff writer for BlackSci-Fi.com. I recently wrote an article detailing ways we can help Black female authors break through in the sci-fi genre, and speculative fiction and horror, all of it.
I'm Chanel Harry, author of Skin Witch, Tales of the Superior. This book was inspired by Trinidad and Tobago folklore. I hope the reader learns the history and terror of the legendary Superior. Also, beware that when you go to sleep at night and wake up the next morning, if there's a strange bruise on your body, that means you may have been visited by the Superior.
It's hard when you're an author on the outside and you're looking at a genre and not seeing women enjoy the exposure that they deserve and that they earned. And hopefully that will change. And I think that it will, because women of color, Black women specifically, we're well equipped and even arguably at an advantage to tell these stories about horror. We know horror all too well. We know pain and loss and that gripping fear of trying to preserve our lives and the lives of others in the face of very real monsters. I became a part of this movement to celebrate these women because they deserve to be celebrated. They deserve to have a platform for our narrative, and they deserve to be the champions of our narrative. So often we see Black women as sort of almost marginalized characters or second thought characters in these films, and we can do better. And I think it would be an improvement on the genre as a whole if, they let more Black women in.
And the vendor walked up to me and she was like, well, what do you read? What kind of books do you read? And I told her, I was like, yeah, I like books that, make you, get the pulse racing, make you sweat, books that you just cling to, like, oh my God. I like horror, I like dark fantasy, hardcore, science fiction, cyberpunk. And she looked at me like I had grown two heads.
As you know, fear is a powerful emotion. Could you explain, from your perspective, how horror exposes fears?
I was up all last night, chatting. On a live stream podcast. Called Once You Hear It, It Happens.
Fear is universal. We're all scared of something.
They were telling these creepy stories about the devil grabbing people's arms if they hung off the sides.
We're all scared of something, someone, or we fear a result of some action or inaction.
To pull their souls to hell. Before they wake up.
It unites us because it's an emotion that we can all agree is something we share.
I fell asleep and had a very strange dream.
As far as entertainment, it's always going to be a uniting thing because we all can relate to the monster on the screen or the person who's running from the thing that's after you or trying to take away something from you.
I woke up this morning on the floor with a sore arm. And a huge handprint burned around my wrist.
That's how I would explain it.
How do I define horror? I think horror is... Let me think about that for a second.
Horror is interesting to me. It gives you a rush. I've always enjoyed horror since the time I was small, and it makes you curious about there's things out there unseen or unheard, or you want to get into it deeper.
Horror, what makes it so fascinating for me is that it's based in a lot of other things besides the things that scare us. Horror can be all about our relationships with people. It can be about technology. It can be about systems. It can be about racism. Horror, to me, is defined as the base emotion that strikes fear into us, but also gets the wheels turning a little bit.
Well, I believe in energy. I'm certain we all do, but there's a misconception about energy, and that is that life energy does not exist in a rock or a tree or earth itself, like it does for animals and humans. But that energy unto itself can be, and possibly is, intelligent, and maybe mindless too. So, there is energy, positive and negative, and some energy must be alive and self-aware, right? So let's assume that there's an opposite to energy. Therefore, do we fear energy, the lack of energy, or some unknown born from both? I'm tend to lean to all of the above because I look at what we write about. We write about our fears from everything, humans, creatures, even inanimate objects that come to life or self-realize them, and then they come out, and then they come and get us.
If I was to pick the moment, the very moment that I knew for sure that I was in love with horror, it would be, and I remember this clear as it was yesterday, it would be the experience I felt when I read my very, very, very first book from Stephen King called Pet Sematary. When Cage was killed, I lost my mind. I came flying out of my room hysterical. I collapsed in my mom's arms. I scared the shit out of her. She didn't know what was going on. And once I was able to compose myself and let her know that Gage died.
I'd say a moment that I fell in love with horror. It's really twofold. I definitely loved reading Stephen King. I grew up reading, The Shining, but I also grew up with horror films like Nightmare on Elm Street. And I think the pivotal moment was when I saw a scene where these kids were trying to get off the block. They were trying to get away from Freddy, and they just circled and circled, and they couldn't. Everywhere they went, they ended up back on Elm Street. It was creepy, it was trippy, it was definitely a moment that I loved. I think that horror does a great job of playing on our innermost fears by amplifying them.
I think the exact moment I fell in love with horror probably can't be clearly defined. I was more of a TV kid than a book kid, growing up in the 80s in Los Angeles. When I was very little, I watched reruns of Night Gallery when I was, I would say about maybe 9 or 10 years old. And those made quite an impression on me. I'm still a Night Gallery fan to this day. I would say that was really my first introduction to the weird and the fantastic. In junior high and high school, I started reading books by Ray Bradbury and fell in love with him and the way he tells stories. And as I grew up, I would read books by Clive Barker and Stephen King and Richard Matheson, and just kind of educate myself as to what a horror storyteller is and how they go about creating these emotions in people. I never really thought about writing it until after I'd left college and kind of struck out on my own and moved to Northern California. I was a disc jockey for a little while up in Redding, California. And I didn't really think about writing short stories until then. My first short stories were basically for me. I didn't submit them anymore. And I eventually turned around my way of thinking about that, around the early 2000s. I began to think seriously about becoming an author. And I finally took the plunge in 2009 and published The Crawl Space. And horror, I would say there have been experiences in my life that I can talk about later, but horror, my first introduction to it was really with Night Gallery, and with also I would say in 1982 when I saw a movie called Dead and Buried. It kind of was a twist on the whole zombie motif, and I really loved that movie, and it's still one of my favorites.
Well, me being a prankster, which is another reason that I like to play pranks, it's interesting how different people react to different levels of fear. I know so many times, when I would do one of my pranks and scare people, like they call it scare tactics.
The world would be a better place if there were more guys like Tim. Tim is headed to a farm in the middle of nowhere, thanks to his friend Rayal.
I want to put Tim on scare tactics because it's kind of mini payback for all the mini pranks that he's pulled on me in the past couple of years. If he gets scared, he's running. And he's got really long legs, so he's extremely fast.
Watch out, Tim, because the stuff that happens on this farm is out of this world.
We're just investigating an insurance claim for this man who owns a farm. His name is Peter. He claims that he's had a bunch of farm animals missing, and just try to ask him as many questions as possible. So I'll go up to the house and I'll get him.
Okay.
Just stay here with Claudia.
All right,
Thank you.
I'll stay tight. I'm usually like deathly afraid of places like this.
I have my associate here this time. You can talk to him instead of talking to me.
Hi, how are you? I'm
Good. So give me the rundown. What's going on?
The unusual thing is the way these animals have got. Now, I ain't never seen nothing like it. They're eviscerated, and then the throats are cut.
So the animals don't go missing. They end up being.
No, they're just laying all over the damn place.
Wow. And does this usually happen at night?
Oh yeah, always at night.
Do you think like this is something not from this world? Like I
don't know.
You know what? We'll take a look, Peter. You can go back in the house, and then we'll let you know when we're leaving. Thank you, Peter.
All right.
All right. Okay. Let's do this. Let's look at it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's difficult. Yeah. Okay. Well, here's something.
Yeah. Peter was talking about how the animals get inviscerated and all their innards are taken out, and it looks like this hasn't been sitting around for too long. Yeah, it's strange. What was that?
We gotta go check that out.
This place looks really old, and there's a lot of cobwebs around. There's hay everywhere. And a dead pig over there?
That's exactly what that is.
I need to get a new battery. Mine's gonna die in like 2 minutes, okay? I'll be right back.
Okay. If you just talk into the microphone and just describe what we're seeing as we're coming here.
The animals have been inviscerated.
Oh, God.
And they have black holes on the bodies.
Oh, God.
Well, it kind of looks like they were stabbed in, totally like one good swing out, as if they were meant to be gutted.
It looks recent.
Yeah, this looked like this recently happened. Do you think we should get out of here? I think we should get out of here. Oh, dear God.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! No! We need to get out of here! We need to get out of here! What is that? Oh my God! Ah! What is that? What is that? Ah! Ah! Oh my God! Ah! No! No! Get out of here! Leave me alone! No!
Stop it! Are you scared?
Yes!
Don't be
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. It's okay.
Your friend Rhea set you up.
Really?
Yeah, she did.
Ah!
Timmy!
No, don't even call me out, girl.
Timmy!
Touch me. That scream wasn't fake. I've never screamed like that in my life.
How scared were you?
On a scale of 1 to 10, it was holy crap. Yeah. Don't come near me, you scared? I need diapers. That's how scared I am. I don't know how else to put it. I'm scared.
It's just interesting watching that. You know, watching some people just freeze. Some of them run, and you know, it just depends. Some of them be ready to fight. So, and then I just write it down, put it in a storyline or something.
Well, how I use that psychology in my work is, believe it or not, anything I attach myself to that I read or watch, I mentally have replaced the lead and put me in there or someone I could relate to in there. I write that way now, too. I visually see everyone I have known, met, hated, or admired in my work in some form or fashion. Sometimes they're amalgamation of one another. Or amalgamation of more than one person into another person, is what I should be saying. Something I never really mentioned about my book is that technically there's one protagonist and one antagonist. I just split them up into different people. They're all versions of each other, heading down different paths, and some of them live or die. Kind of like Pulp Fiction, there's a theory that Jules and the other character, Samuel Jackson character and Travolta's character are the same person, but one picks the wrong way and the other picks the right way. So if it is, it's totally genius. If not, it's genius because it was done by accident, right? Anyway, these characters are all a sum of different aspects of their parts and personalities and agendas. And so you take this psychology and you use it and you mix it and you put it in a blender and you come up with people that other people can relate to. It's not just the monster. Anybody can write about monsters, but it's about either the person you're hoping avoids the monster or the monster itself. But you got to give him real parts so people can sympathize, empathize, or even hate. So yeah, that psychology does fit inside my own work.
And so it's unsettling for some to try and come to terms with why they are trying to either justify or explain or condone some of these actions that my characters are doing. And I think that again, that's a goal of every single storyteller is to have their characters connect on that level with their characters, so that they have a visceral reaction to how a story ends or a certain scene or what's, crying their eyes out when their character dies.
Everything, so that's internal. And then you have the melanated or the black, which is dealing with the dark matter or the dark energy. And we know all things come out of darkness on this planet. Everything comes out of darkness.
Third eye activated cosmic traveler frequent flyer. Deeper perspectives on horror by S. Ollie Myers.
Horror films are like this. It's a very good way for you to do shadow work, but on an external level. What do I mean? Shadow work is when you work on the lower aspects of yourself. That's what you call your animalistic nature. The things that you don't want to tell people about, that's what we call the shadow work. Shadow is things that you put in the shadow because you don't want to face that in the light. So you kind of put it under the rug. You put it in the closet. So when you look at horror films show you the shadow side of yourself because you're seeing on film externally something that you may see inside you. So you may have a tendency to may want to harm people. Well, that's not something popular that you should tell anybody, but that's something that you have innate in you. So when you go see a slasher film or someone murdering somebody, that's a way for you to see the shadow part of yourself on film. But did you really do the inner work? So the next step beyond horror films is to really do inner work on that which you see played out on film. So horror is great for that because it shows you all the despicable, hideous, and just nasty stuff that we as humans have perpetuated on this earth, but you can see it played out on the film, and it's so safe in your home environment. Now, I feel like that the black woman or the melanated woman is probably best to write about horror films because, for one, you have a feminine energy, and you know anything about the female energy is they embody everything, because that's internal. And then you have a melanated or the black, which is dealing with the dark matter or the dark energy, and we know all things come out of darkness on this planet. Everything comes out of darkness. So when you combine the darkness with the female energy, there's probably no better person to write about horror films than that which horror comes from. And I don't mean horror from a physical sense, but going back to shadow work, all the stuff that we hide is usually hid in darkness. So when you have a dark energy, especially a female energy, they can bring that to light way better than any man or anyone else because they resonate on that frequency.
Early on, I was inspired by the Kraken from Clash of the Titans. I was inspired by, the Centaur and, Sinbad and all the wonderful, Ray Harryhausen, monstrosities.
When you're creating something, you're sort of a conduit for the energy that comes from it. And that feeling, getting enveloped in it, is almost supernatural.
I started reading, fantasy very early on, and anything that had a monster in it tended to capture my attention. So, from when I first started writing, I knew that, I had to have monsters in my books.
We're finally coming to the surface, so to speak, but we don't get the publicity that we probably should get. So as people find out more about us and all. For one thing, they have the black fiction, African American fiction in this level on this side, and we were among the romance and the urban fiction and all of that. Whereas if we were in the mainstream sections, we would be next to Stephen King and Dean Koontz and so I think that's why people are not really aware of us. I wasn't aware of Octavia Butler, and until I really got into reading and, discovering that there was this African American section and oh wow, so we were out there. We just got to be discovered.
I think what's going on is that we're so dispersed, and some of us are behind the scenes in some pretty big projects that people don't know we're here. Like for instance, Monica Beam, she's a producer. She was one of the producers behind the TV show Fringe. I was super surprised to find that out, and when I did find that out, I also learned that she also was involved in Charmed and in the series Lost. So, which is a really good concept behind the whole colors and darkness, is it allows us to contradict together, and once we find each other, it gives us opportunities to cross-promote, collaborate, and let everyone know that we're here. And I think that's what's going on. I don't think there's a lack of people of color in the industry. I just think that we're slowly but surely making names for ourselves, and people are becoming more aware of who we are.
Now, the whole idea behind Colors and Darkness and the website is that you can no longer say, well, I didn't know that black folks wrote horror and they wrote that speculative stuff. Right here, okay, on that website, you can see that there is a whole lot of, offerings of diversity in horror, paranormal, dark fantasy. We have a nice little color system where you can go and look and check and see that there are zombie books with black folks, there are werewolf books, there are paranormal ghosts, all kinds of stuff. You can click on the book cover and go directly to the Amazon link. You can go to the author page and click on an author and find out more about that author. So it's kind of like a mass promo. Instead of one, stumbling across one book and saying, oh, wow, this is awesome. A black person that wrote, a zombie apocalypse book, or, this book has black vampires in it. Awesome. Instead of just saying that, now you can be like, oh, there's more. So after I finish reading one, I can move on to the next. I can, support others, So it's more like a group promo site. So, instead of there being one, there's many, and you can see that there's many. So kind of like providing, it's there right in your face, available for you.
As a woman, female writer, horror writer, I think that it's always a surprise for number one, that I even write horror, that's the first thing. They don't expect us. And we're out here, I think that we are more able to invoke fear because it's so unexpected, But, that's always the first reaction I get. You're what? You're a horror writer. But yes, and I'm full of surprises.
The best piece of advice that I can give anyone trying to break through is to spread your content far and wide and never underestimate who wants to connect with your work. I would have never known that I had a readership across the globe in different places, specifically West Africa and South Africa, but also in the UK and London. I would have never known had I not thrown the net out there to see who was going to engage with it.
You have to study the industry. You can't just jump in head first. To know your business, starting at the ground up. Know the industry that you're getting ready to enter into is more than just sitting down writing a book. You have to know the business aspect of it. Start just like in any industry. You start at the bottom and work your way up, but you have to know your business to handle your back. Watch your back.
Earning a living as an author, you have to promote and you have to market and you have to build your social media platform, and you have to connect with people, and you have to know going straight out of the bat that not every connection is going to end in a book sale, nor should it. I think what makes people interested in things that people create is when they have a personal connection, when they feel like they're personally invested in a person's success or not. Because I write horror, I have tons of friends and family members who will never, ever, ever read any of my books because they're not into horror. Some of my friends can't even get through a horror trailer. But they do support me in other ways. They chip in for my travel fund when I'm going to conventions. They buy my t-shirts. They spread the word. They buy my books for other people. And that's because they're invested in me.
Surround yourself with positive people. I'm far more creative when I'm around those that support my work, that see my vision. I know the negative, obviously, but I don't need to focus on that. In order to be creative, I need to just, at least try. I don't like to be pulled back, so to speak, to look at the doom and gloom and all of that. So surround yourself with positive people.
To be a successful writer or a successful painter or a successful pot maker or basket weaver, you have to make those connections. So I think that my advice to you would be twofold. Is to one, don't be afraid to tell the story that you're meant to tell. And two, not everything you do should end with the goal of selling a book. You do want to make connections with people. You do want to be cross-promoting other authors. You do want to collaborate with other authors. Because one thing that I see in the industry that's not right, I would say, is that people think that writers are competing against each other, and we're not doing that. If we were, some of us wouldn't stand a chance, because if you go by that logic, then who I'm competing against would be Stephen King, and that's no contest. But luckily, it's not a competition. There's enough fans of the genre for all of us to sit at this table.
Well, for authors, the advice that I would give, first of all, read a lot. Second of all, form friendships with people, go to conventions, go to readers' conferences and writers' conferences, and just form friendships and relationships with people. Have them look at your work. Don't think that the first thing that comes out of your Word or whatever software that you use is going to be Pulitzer Prize winning. Okay, just have as many eyes as possible look at what you've written and take their advice, and come into it with an open mind that that you're really not as great as you think, but you can always become great. That you're a good writer, but what makes you great is your ability to change. And that's probably the best advice.
My advice would be commit to creating and finishing. Even if it sucks. You keep making shit, and then soon you'll discover that you either suck at it or you're improving. And once you notice those two things, you have very specific choices you're going to have to make. If you suck, find what you're good at and love doing and do that, or learn not to suck. If you're improving, keep creating, because you're getting better at being you.
Colors and darkness are tribes worth pride, with stories that terrify and come alive when you close your eyes. Colors and darkness are tribes worth pride, with stories that terrify and come alive when you close your eyes. Colors and darkness are tribes worth pride, with stories that terrify and come alive when you close your eyes. Colors and darkness are tribes worth pride, with stories that terrify and come alive when you close your eyes.
I think that in 10 years from now, we'll have a lot more household names in the Black female horror game.